Data protection and privacy teams are under more pressure than ever with new laws, AI oversight, data breaches, and the constant expectation to do more with fewer resources.
That's why TrustArc built a modern privacy and data protection management platform powered by Arc Intelligence. It unifies your tools, automates the work that slows you down, and surfaces what matters most right when you need it.
From guided quick actions to our intelligent assistant, Ask Arc, you get credible, contextual answers backed by expert research, not generic AI guesses.
Finally, privacy that works the way privacy pros work.
Learn how TrustArc helps teams move faster with confidence at trustarc.com/serious-privacy. That's trustarc.com/serious-privacy.
This is Serious Privacy. Here are your hosts, Paul Breitbart and Kay Royal.
Hello, and welcome to Serious Privacy. Today, I have the delight of being here with Jason Cronk. If you don't know his name, you actually should. Paul is off doing whatever Paul does that's much more important than sitting here and chit-chatting with me. So I get to do an extra episode this week, and I'm so glad to have you on, Jason. It's an absolute delight.
Thank you, Kay. I'm happy to be here. Long-time listener, first-time caller. I use your podcast both when I'm driving long distances.
Nice. Thank you.
And back when I'm doing exercise, or not necessarily like a gym exercise, but on bike rides. I listen to your podcast. And the next thing I know, I'm an hour down the road or an hour into my bike ride, and all is good.
I was going to say, are you one of those that wanted us to cut back to 30 minutes so you weren't riding the bike for an hour?
No, I think I actually submitted and said you should do long.
So, okay, unexpected question. What is your favorite thing to do on a Saturday morning?
Oh, geez. It really varies. So because I travel so much, it really depends on where I am, what I'm doing, and who I'm with. So there's not I don't have a standard answer. I would say probably my most likely thing to do on a weekend is go out and do a hike or a bike ride.
Nice.
To get out and enjoy nature. Again, depending on weather. Also, sometimes I do that midweek because I'll be somewhere, and I'll do that midweek and then Saturday I'll work. So it really varies.
Right. Mine's easy. I like to sleep.
Yeah, I know a lot of people who that's the answer. And certainly if I've had a late Saturday or late Friday night, then definitely sleep in Saturday. But my definition of sleeping in is like maybe waking up at 7:30.
Oh, I was going to say my sleeping in now is only till about 8. I have to force myself to stay in bed because with this job, my colleagues are mainly on the East Coast or they're in Europe, and I'm starting my days at 5 a.m. in the morning, which anybody who knows me knows that is not a good thing. I'm definitely still sucking down the coffee on that first meeting, and they know I'm not going to be on camera till at least 6, trust me.
Yeah, I feel you.
Okay, so let's chat because we have a ton of things we could actually cover. And one of the things I wanted to bring out is that you were able to go to the TROP Summit and I was not. So the Rise of Privacy Tech was held it wasn't in San Jose. Where was it? It was in Santa Cruz?
Santa Cruz.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's about, 30, 45-minute drive. I took the 17 bus down. I flew into San Jose on Sunday, took the 17 bus down. I'm here for a couple of days.
Nice.
It was a great event yesterday. Actually, right after this call, Lourdes, who is the head of the Rise of Privacy Tech, is picking up, and we're going for a hike.
Nice.
So, again, taking advantage of this, and then Saturday I'll probably be working.
Oh, give Lourdes a big hug. Hello from me, because I really hate that I couldn't make it. My schedule is all up in the air with the new job and the kids' vacation and everything like that. Yeah. Oh, I wish I could have made it over.
It's such a great event.
It is.
I think she really did it even better this year. It's very small and intimate, so it's good to meet people and talk to
Love
people.
It.
But 2, she broke it up and kind of adopted some of the techniques from, we've both been to a Privacy Law Scholars Conference.
Yeah.
Where they do kind of a roundtable discussion. So they had a panelist that would talk about a certain topic area of interest to the Rise of Privacy Tech people, which is usually like startup founders, privacy tech people, investors, or buyers of privacy tech. And then we did 45-minute talk, listening to talk, and then we did 45-minute breakout sessions that were smaller groups. I think there were 3 groups total.
Nice.
About 30 people or so. And again, had a moderator who was kind of like prompting us and asking us to discussing. And you'll like this. They actually started out an introduction, go around the room, introduce yourself, and they asked a kind of, I don't say non-privacy related question, but certainly something that was
an unexpected question, huh?
Yeah. What, tell us something about yourself or, that nobody knows or something, different ones. Everyone did different things. So it was interesting.
Oh, I love it. I absolutely love it because I'm not sure what your role is with them. I'm a tech visionary. I think you have a different role. Is that right?
I'm not officially affiliated, but I love Lourdes and everything she's doing. And I love coming to this kind of more intimate environment as opposed to, some of the events are like thousands of people.
Oh, I know.
Like cattle.
You learn that people were there that you really wanted to see after you get back.
Exactly.
Right. I've seen that way too often, especially with the DC events where people come from so many different countries and you've never met them in person in your life. And then you find out they were there and you didn't have an opportunity to see them.
Yeah. And even trying to schedule with people, you're like, oh,
it's impossible
during this time. No, I'm doing it. It's like, yeah, you can't. But I remember seeing you and Paul across the room at the summit.
It's like, yeah, there he goes right there. Yeah, I know. And I was supposed to meet with both Lourdes and Deb while I was there, Deb Farber, at the DC one, wasn't able to make that happen. I mean, it's not even 2 ships passing in the night. It's just 2 rockets passing because there's so much to do and so many people to see. But Paul and I are actually looking, this is one thing, we've started a proposal for sponsors. One of the reasons is to be able to allow us to host events at these events where rather than doing a happy hour, because everybody does a happy hour, maybe we do a morning coffee hour so the fans of Serious Privacy can come, and that includes people that you would want to see when you're at these big events.
Yeah, no, I think I have been to some sponsored like breakfast events. Obviously, they have breakfast at the one we're talking about, but I've been to some coffee things. So yeah, you're right. Not a happy hour would probably be good. One of the problems obviously is they try to cram so much in like 2.5 days that it's like you get invited to 12 different things. And it's like you can only go to one. Similarly, I went to a NIST workshop and that conflicted with something else. I went to Lourdes had a little gathering.
Yep.
And I went to that instead of something else. So it's you got to pick and choose.
You do. And a lot of people are extroverts. I am not. So when I go to these, I know it shocks everybody, but when I go to these events, they exhaust me on so many different, I'm excited to be there, but they exhaust me on multiple levels.
Yeah, I had to force myself. I was an introvert for years, but then getting into privacy and even prior to that, I forced myself to start introducing myself. Now I'm not as forward as I used to when I was years ago when I was going to some of the privacy events. I would literally just walk up to tables of people and be like, hey, I'm Jason, blah, blah, and start talking with them. Now I get enough people walking up to me just because of my infamy, I guess.
We'll go with infamy.
Yeah, enough people recognize me, and so I'm not quite as outgoing as I used to be, but I still had to force myself to be more extra.
Well, people don't recognize me.
Because I hear your voice, they just got to listen.
They recognize my laugh.
It's like, oh wait, that's Kay.
And it is true, and I feel really bad because I see people, and I am absolutely teetotally horrible with names. And people will run up to me at these things and be like, oh, okay. And I'm like, and who are you?
Well, okay. So I've been telling people this recently because I did the exact same thing at Trope. I sat down at a table and I was like, oh, hi, I'm Jason. And they said, oh, yeah, we know each other. And I'm like, oh, okay. So
right.
The thing is, so I can't remember the name there's a name for like how many people you can know. And it's like, there's like 150 people that you can know intimately.
Outside of any context, yeah.
Yeah, that you just know them. And then there's a few thousand, maybe 1,000 to 2,000 that you can be like, I know that person, that's Kay, that's Paul, and you recognize them. And you may know one, like where they're from, what country or something like that. Some relatively easy fact. The problem is, you and I probably have gotten to a point. I have like 4,000 LinkedIn connections, 5,000 LinkedIn connections, something like that. So there are people I'm connected on LinkedIn. I'm like, I have no clue who these people are. I mean, I knew it at the time I connected, but it was 6 years ago. And so they see my post because I'm very active, but
you may not hardly see anything from them at all. Yeah, that's true. That's very true. But let's go ahead and talk about some of the fascinating things we've talked about. So since we started with the rise of privacy tech, and you told me a little bit about that, was there any particular conversation or topic that stood out to you? You can basically touch on any topic that someone throws at you and just wing it, essentially.
yeah.
So was there anything that stood out to you?
Well, I did like, I think the first year there were more people I talked to who were in the compliance tech space.
Okay.
I think it was oversold. And so most of the like companies that were there that were doing privacy tech were not in the compliance space. This doesn't say that stuff that they were doing would help with compliance, but they weren't there like that program management compliance aspect. They were more focused, more narrow. So that stood out a little bit, and just the variety of people, like you said. I mean, there was just conversations all over the place in all different aspects, because there were people from startups, there were people from big companies, there were certainly some investors, but there was somebody from Consumer Reports, and there was a couple of lawyers there, so it was a very a very good variety of people.
Nice.
And a very good variety of conversations as well. I met somebody, I mean, she had been a federal prosecutor for years and was now like in cybersecurity.
Wow.
Trying to learn more about privacy, and, trying to, I can't remember what company she was with, but it was again, interesting conversation at lunch.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And before we go too far, one of the things that was suggested was that we try to cover some of the most recent news, not that we necessarily talk about it, but just cover a couple of things so people who may not be paying attention to what's actually happening come on. So just some high level news that we're looking at is the U.S. intelligence community is addressing FISA again, the 702 reauthorization. If you were looking at making comments on the HHS call for comments on the post-Dobbs decision with more protections for reproductive rights, make sure that you get your comments in for that. There was Louisiana is kind of following Utah and requiring parental permission for minors access to that. By the way, there is a new principal deputy for the U.S. Chief Technology Officer. This should be a name that's near and dear to most people in privacy. It's actually Deirdre Mulligan. So yay, so excited for that. That'd be awesome. Maybe we could actually get Deirdre on our call. That would be phenomenal. So we can look at that. There's a call out to Deirdre. I think she might listen. Ha ha ha. There is a new Connecticut bill that's on AI privacy and AI policy. So look for that as well if you're looking at it. I think there's been a couple of breaches lately, especially one over in the UK with privacy vaccines. I think that was over in the UK. Jason, you may know. There was a bill from the FCC or a fine from the FCC on non-consensual robocalls. So if you never thought there was an issue on robocalls and actually holding companies accountable, there's one there. Nevada passed a health data privacy bill. I have not gone and looked at it in detail. I think that was just the end part of last week, so I haven't gone and looked at that one. And anything else current news? I think Florida passed something. I don't think it was a privacy bill. Was it a digital bill of rights? Okay.
It was, I mean, it was it had I haven't looked at the bill actually, but it does have a lot of privacy implications. A lot of people are not calling it a privacy bill because
it's like a bill of rights, not an actual privacy act. But Connecticut went ahead and passed additional privacy provisions, right?
That I don't know.
I think they did.
The Florida bill was targeted at big tech companies.
Got it.
And I think there's a limitation of like they have to have $1 billion in sales a year.
Okay.
And we think about that as consumers. Oh, that's a lot of money. There's only a couple, but there's the Fortune, like every Fortune 500 company is over $1 billion a year in sales. So there's still a lot of companies large companies that will affect.
Certainly. Right. So internationally, to cover Paul's here, I think there was a fine. Let me see, when was this? To Spotify out of Sweden for
what about
58 million, I believe it was, for GDPR. They were closer to home. Microsoft got a COPPA fine for 20 million over at Xbox. This is following the same gaming fines that we've been seeing. European Commission is actually going to seek Google break up ad tech. So good luck with that one. If anybody could do it, it would probably be Europe. And then something that speaks to me is there's a lot of looking at unlawful data processing, looking from the insurance perspective. So something that I'll be paying close attention to. So now back to our regularly scheduled programming. Jason, I wanted to ask you in particular, I know there's a lot of things you can talk about. We just got through saying that, but I really would like to go to you. There was a couple of things that we talked at. I want to touch on one. You do a co-host podcast with the Better Business Bureau, Privacy Abbreviated. So we'll make sure to give everyone a call out with that with Donna Frazier. But I also wanted to talk on the nonprofit that you're chairing, the Institute of Operational Privacy Design, and your design process, and then NIST. Because I'm looking more doing NIST now. The company I'm with is a NIST house, and I've never been a NIST house. I've always been an ISO house. So I want to talk about both of those. Which ones would you like to jump on first?
Yeah, let me start with the last one, which you just talked about, because that is true that I see a lot of companies, you're either ISO or you're NIST. And there's certainly overlap and there are differences in approaches, but there are reasons that companies do ISO or choose NIST. And both of them have very strong cybersecurity related standards or the cybersecurity framework. So, and that's typically what happens is because cybersecurity is kind of ahead of privacy. If you're an ISO or NIST shop from a cybersecurity perspective, you will probably more likely gravitate into NIST. A few years back, I was with a company, consulting with a company that was an early adopter of it. And so it was really lucky on my part because they essentially paid me to
learn it. Nice.
Learn it well.
I will say it's not easy to learn, Jason. The NIST privacy framework is something that just makes you scratch your head and go, huh?
Yeah. So one of the things with NIST is you have a lot of very specific jargon that is specific to it. And unfortunately, so people will glim through it and they will make assumptions about what they've read and they'll go try to apply it. But in my view, if you actually sit down with it and take the time to understand it, there's a lot of value in doing it correctly. And I do with that with clients as well. Now, to your point about learning it and this difficulty and kind of there's a lot because it's very, I don't want to say dense, it is very condensed in terms of, again, the jargon. It's like, how do I interpret this one very important sentence?
Yeah, this one little thing it says to do. What are they asking me to do? But I will say that in general, the ISO privacy work, the 27701 for privacy, it basically at its very heart just says, take the 001 where it says information systems and include privacy systems. And it's like, it doesn't. So I will say I'm used to working with that. The NIST actually does focus on not just saying integrate privacy into your information systems and replace those words with this phrase. It actually is a framework for privacy. I will say that. So I'm going to force myself to dig my way all the way through it.
I am the author of the IPP's textbook, Strategic Privacy by Design, but I am also now working with a co-author on a new book about implementing your privacy program using the NIST privacy framework.
Ooh.
So you look forward to that. Not to say wait for that because you may be holding your breath a little too long.
Yeah.
So you want to dive in now, but there's certainly some benefit. Like I said, I'm a very big proponent of it, and I just think it needs a little bit more hand-holding for people to kind of dive in. And so one of the things I want to say is you don't have to, and we're going to try to emphasize this in the book, is you don't have to do everything, right? So you can take it at a level that is reasonable for your company. I mean, even like an example I've used in training, I've gone through and at the very highest level, the what's called the function level of the core is for like a florist shop. Imagine a florist shop of 20 people. And the example I use is they're operating in Washington, D.C. and they're delivering to like embassies or people who may not want information about their flowers exposed, things like that. So they have a little bit more heightened concern about flower delivery than, say, the typical florist shop. But you can do it at a level you don't have to hire, a huge expert.
Kind of like the maturity framework. You can pick your level of maturity.
Right. Basically, you've done this before, I'm sure as well. It's like just a very high level. What data do you have? What kind of policies do you have about it? What kind of control are you giving individuals? How are you communicating that? And how are you protecting data? That's like the 5 functions. And it's like, even for a florist shop, you can answer those questions.
Right. Okay.
You don't have to do the 100 outcomes. So there are different levels. And in fact, I don't know any company that is doing like they may be attempting to do it, but they're not doing the complete thing. They're kind of condensing and picking and choosing. And that's perfectly appropriate because it is a framework. It says you do not have to do everything.
Right.
What's appropriate for your company at your level of risk sophistication and at your maturity level.
Nice. Well, I will say I cheated a little bit on it. I'm using TrustArc's Privacy Central. I'm mapping all my GDPR activities, which then goes and tells you what you have fulfilled in any of the other frameworks that you choose. So I'm answering it according to GDPR. And by the way, I've worked with the cybersecurity framework for years. So aside from ISO and NIST altogether, the cybersecurity framework is simply phenomenal. We all know that. Hands up, praise God. Okay, so let's talk about your nonprofit then.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's been a number of things that I've been working on over the years that have kind of culminated in this creation of this nonprofit called the Institute of Operational Privacy Design. So I've clearly been in privacy by design for a while, and there were 2 things that used to bug me for years. One was a lot of companies using this privacy by design is kind of a sales point, but then it's the question is like, what are you really doing? And they may be doing something really phenomenally well, but they're not doing everything phenomenally well. Like, maybe they've got, one little privacy aspect is perfect. So I felt there was a need for kind of very good friends with Ian Kavukian, who came up with the 7 principles behind privacy by design. And I've been a privacy by design ambassador for most of my privacy career, so over 10 years. And but the problem was you give the principles to engineers and they're like, what do you want me to do with this?
Right.
So there was a missing step. And this is why I wrote my book and kind of what I've been working on the last 5, 6, 7 years. And so that was one. The second thing is I did a lot of vendor negotiations at the last job I had. And we asked for, what are you doing for security? They'd be like, oh, here's our ISO certification. Here's our SOC 2. Here's whatever it is. What are you doing for privacy? And there would be crickets. So there wasn't anything out there. Now, I started getting involved in the ISO standard, the program or project committee for the one that came out as 31700, privacy by design in consumer products or consumer goods and services. My personal take is I found it, one, very bureaucratic, and also just because of the sheer number of people involved. Even just in the United States, we had 150 companies at the technical advisory group. So it tends to be, it's like, what can we get acceptable to this large group of people?
Right.
And I wanted something that was more of a gold standard rather than a baseline, something that companies could strive to achieve and say, look, we've achieved this. So about 2.5 years ago, myself and a few others started this Institute of Operational Privacy Design. Again, one of the reasons was I didn't, I could come out with like Jason certification, but who's going to, I have somewhat of a name, but that's still, people want some kind of.
Oh, we need to we have to levy the royal certification. I'm just saying. I've been arguing for that for years. We need a royal seal of approval.
We're returning to the monarchy. I'm sure Paul can support that. So we came up with this Institute of Operational Privacy Design, and we worked for about 2 years on our design process standard, which the standard here is around your product design, your service design, whatever your design process from ideation and thinking about it to actually sitting down and like constructing it and designing it and developing
Nice.
it, and then rolling it out and deploying it. And so what is the minimum things what are the components that you have to do? Not to say that you're going to ultimately end up with a privacy friendly product, but you definitely won't if you don't have this. This is kind of like ISO's 9001 quality standard.
Okay.
It doesn't say that your end product is going to be quality, but it says you have the management components to build in quality. So then the second standard we're working on, so we published that in January. The second standard we're currently working on is one like a seal of approval. So the actual product or service to show that this product or service has been built with privacy aforethought and meets requirements. And the goal for this, I'll just tell you, and I know I'm trying to cram in a lot here, but one of the things I was hoping to achieve eventually is to get approval by the European Data Protection Board under Article 42, which is certification schemas, for Article 25, data protection by design and default, so that companies could use this as a showcase to say, hey, we are following the requirements of Article 25. Now, it is not a get out of jail free card, but it at least is something in your pocket to show that you're trying to achieve compliance.
And there are companies out there who think there is a get out of jail free card. There is not. There is no such thing as a get out of jail free card. No. There is a document. Do what you say what you do, be transparent, be comprehensive as possible, be thoughtful, be deliberate, be considerate.
Absolutely. So we're working on that standard. We're looking at a concept called assurance cases right now.
Okay.
And the idea, so this has been used in the safety industry for decades now, in like airline safety, where they will make a safety case, which is a specific form of assurance case. Basically, it's not a proof, but it is a structured argument that makes a claim. It provides an argument supporting that claim and evidence supporting those arguments. And it is a very structured, formalized approach to saying that you are not guaranteeing that this thing is safe, but you are assuring that everything has been done that can be done.
Okay.
And this is This has been genericized in some cases in the security world for security cases. And now we are taking it, and we're not the first. There's a couple of papers out there about making a privacy case. So we're using the same thing, where you're claiming that privacy has been built in. You're making an argument, a structured argument, and you're supporting that with evidence. So this is what we're looking at right now. It's I think it's an interesting way to go, and we'll see where we end up. So, and by the way, just a nod. So going back to NIST, so you're probably familiar with NIST 853, the control.
Oh yeah, just a tad.
Control. Well, there's another one that you may or may not be. I wasn't. That is NIST 853A, which is the assessment criteria for the controls. And in that, there is a section on making an effective assurance case for the control. So basically using this concept of an assurance case, claiming the control is effective, using a structured argument and a set of evidence to show that the control is actually effective. So,
I think at one time when I was working heavily in this, I was familiar with it, but I will say it's not something I would have called up to the top of my mind and been like, oh yeah, kind of like, in the 27000 series, it's the 27001A that you want to go look at to actually get your standards to judge by. Appendix A.
Right. Oh, I was just saying, yeah, I mean, it's the kind of thing, it's like, unless I was looking for, I was actually out searching for assurance cases in the privacy world, and that's where came up. I mean, I've skimmed through 853A when they came out with revision 5 last year, but it didn't absorb.
Right.
So I was actually looking for evidence and articles and things about assurance case in the privacy world. This came up, and I'm like, oh, so again, we're not the first people to do this. So we're not, but it is still kind of like cutting edge.
We'll make sure that we get links to that up there as well. And yes, if I neglect to put the links in when I do the description, please, y'all, call me to account for it. I'll make sure I get those up.
Oh, I forgot to mention. So your frequent co-host, Mr. Ralph O'Brien,
yes,
is on the standards committee of the Institute of Operational Privacy Design.
Yes. Nice.
So so we have another tie-in.
There we go. I love me some Ralph. I'm just saying.
Yeah. No, he's a great guy. So
He really is
so
good guy.
Yeah, we've got some great people on our standards committee, great advisors, very well known.
Good.
So, this actually, if you'll permit me, this actually leads into, so one of our advisors, he's advisor and standards committee, David Taylor, is one of the data protection commissioners at CERN, which is the international organization. And interestingly enough, they're in Switzerland. They are not governed by Swiss law. They are not governed by PR because they are an international organization. And so they have their own data protection commission, of which David is one of the commissioners. All the commissioners are external, just as a check and balance, right? So, and I am going to be speaking at CERN next month. I got invited to do a talk on privacy. So I'm attending the Privacy Enhancing Technology Symposium in Lausanne, Switzerland, but I'm going to Geneva immediately before that to speak at CERN.
Oh, that's cool. I am officially jealous now. Officially. That's really cool. I like that. I like that a lot.
They won't take me in they can't take me in the where the actual collider is, because it's off limits even to researchers because it's in use right now. But
seems like it might be a little dangerous.
Yeah, that's what they said. So they didn't want some boson going through my brain and scrambling it or something.
The only thing I can think of is Sheldon Cooper would love it.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm a geek.
So earlier that week, I'll be in actually right up Paul's alley. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. I think it's Delft, and it's right next to The Hague in the Netherlands. And I'm keynoting the International Workshop on Privacy Engineering.
Ooh, that's cool. Do you plan to focus on anything in particular, or have you started planning it out?
Yes. So I don't have my whole talk, so I can't give it to you right now, but I can at least get some points out. So in 2013, I wrote a blog that was published on the IAPP website, and I said, is 2013 the year of the privacy engineer? So the title of my talk is 2023 the year of the privacy engineer? Because clearly I was being a little optimistic in 2013 that we were going to move toward a more tech-based application of privacy. And I'm just going to be talking about the different domains of privacy engineering, because a lot of people, they only think about data science and maybe IT infrastructure, but privacy engineering can cover physical infrastructure like hospital design. It can cover HCI or user interface design, like the interactions between user and interface. It can cover business process design. So there's a whole bunch of areas. And the other thing I'm going to kind of focus on is kind of for people to watch out for the dilution of the term, because I run into a lot of lawyers who unfortunately see privacy engineering as anything technical they don't understand about privacy.
Right.
Engineering, if you look to the IEEE, it's the application of math and science to a problem or embedding a system with some quality attribute of which privacy. And so just because somebody is coding something, doing some coding or something like that, that doesn't make them a privacy engineer. And I'll give you, and part of this, I'll give you a little hint. There were a couple of companies, at least one in particular that will remain unnamed, that their engineering department needed non-engineers in privacy. They needed analysts and they needed people to do privacy compliance and stuff. But because they were an engineering department, the HR department said, you have to hire engineers. So they would slap the title of privacy engineer on the job title, even though the job didn't cover privacy. So there's been this dilution of the term. And so I'm trying to ring it back in and say it's okay. You've got to be doing something scientific or mathematical or applying some type of scientific principles to solving this problem, not just because you're sitting there coding. And the same problem, the same software engineering has the same problem, right? Just because you're coding doesn't make you a software engineer, per se.
Well, and on the privacy engineering, was Mickey Dennedy there at the TROPT meeting? Because she involved with them.
she was flying off in a couple of days somewhere, and one of her co-founders of her business, it's like Privacy Code or something like that.
Yeah.
They were there, but she
good.
was leaving in 2 days to international.
I was going to say, I bet you had a lot to talk about if you did.
Yeah. So yeah, no, she's great. I've known her for years, and her co-author of the Privacy Engineers Manifesto, Jonathan Fox. I've been on I've been on panels with Michelle as well, but Jonathan also.
Very cool. Well, when I asked you to come on, was there anything in particular that you wanted to make sure that you could share with our audience that we haven't touched on? I mean, you're just a man of many items, knowledge items, and experience, and
yeah, no, I mean, we've touched on a lot of the stuff that I'm involved in, and this privacy framework, the talks I'm going to be doing, the podcast, the Institute, which is my passion right now, and a lot of my focus. I've been doing, you and I saw each other in Phoenix for the BSI talk.
That was nice.
Couple of months have been travel. So I am currently nomadic. I have not had a permanent location since last August. Like I said, I was right before this Trope event here in San Jose. I was in Denver at the Rocky Mountain Information Security Conference giving a talk. The week before that, I was in Boulder, so I was in the same area
nice.
At the Privacy Law Scholars Conference. So it's starting to become a little bit taxing, and I need to get back to actually doing work instead of just thinking about it.
I probably had a few friends at the Privacy Law Scholars Conference. One is one that we've had him on the podcast before. He is a young privacy scholar that I respect huge. It's Wayne Unger. He came straight out of law school, got a visiting professor role. I think he had 3 papers published while he was in law school, and he graduated a semester early. So very much aimed for and suited for the academic life. And so he wrote me something about being at the Privacy Law Scholars Conference, and he said he definitely had imposter syndrome. I said, oh, if anyone was not an imposter, it would be you.
But so the only other thing I can think about that I do want to just briefly touch upon that is one of my passions now is talking about privacy risk. And I won't go into a whole spiel, but so the NIST framework is also called a tool for managing enterprise privacy risk. And part of my travels around, especially when I've been talking to security groups, because I've talked to some local chapters of ISACA and ISSA and CSA, is I talk about the privacy risk versus security risk, how they're related, how they're different. And also some of the problems with a lot of the way people address risk or kind of do risk assessments with these low, mediums, and high, and these qualitative measures or ordinal measures where they're doing like 1 to 5. There's all sorts of structural problems. There's human bias problems. And in fact, at RMISC, it was interesting. During one of the breaks from the privacy thing that I was at, that I went over to the security and somebody was talking, and they had a longer time to talk about this, but they were talking about like the different human biases, things like if you spill your coffee in the morning, you're more likely in a risk assessment to rate risk higher than you would, or they're just all sorts of, again, things that we need to move in the privacy profession towards a more objective, numbers-based risk assessment and not the subjective kind of quality. You think about your insurance company, right? Your auto insurance company. Imagine if they said, okay, you're high risk, we're not going to insure you. Or you're medium risk, that's $1,000 a month because that's the only bucket we have. They have actuaries and statisticians, and they get feedback. So they give a price for their premium, or not premiums, but their premiums. And then the next year they go back and say, well, were these people in this category really risky? And they redo their assessments using like regression analysis. Eventually, we in the privacy community and the security community need to get to that point.
More exacting.
Much more sophisticated, not just throwing something at the wall and saying, oh, that's high risk.
Right. Got it. I like that. I like that very much. So with that, Jason, thank you so much for joining me. I truly, truly appreciate it. For all the listeners out there, thank you all for joining us as well. You can find us online at any of your podcast apps. We're also on LinkedIn as Serious Privacy. You can find Paul online as EuroPaulB. You can find me at Heart of Privacy. You can find Jason at...
So Privacy Maverick on Twitter, but I haven't posted in like 6 months. So yeah.
We understand it. We'll give you his LinkedIn link so you can find him anyway. But with that, thank y'all so much for joining us again. And Paul usually says something like goodbye for now or until next time. And I say bye, y'all. So bye, y'all.
That was Serious Privacy.
If you're a data protection or privacy professional, you already know the pressure. Non-stop regulatory change, AI oversight, internal demands, and the expectation to somehow stay ahead of it all. And the old patchwork of tools just isn't cutting it anymore.
No. That's why TrustArc created a modern privacy management platform powered by Arc Intelligence. The TrustArc platform brings your workflows, evidence, research, tasks, and applications all together in one unified and intelligent workspace so you don't waste time digging, clicking, or context switching.
With Ask Arc, your privacy assistant, you can ask plain language questions about laws, jurisdictions, or even your own program data and get credible, cited answers based on Nomadic research and more than 1,000 global laws. It's explainable, transparent, and purpose-built for data protection and privacy.
So if you need to add a vendor, create a cookie banner, or start an assessment, quick actions take formally complex tasks, turn them into bite-sized guided workflows to save you time.
It's a platform that thinks like you, works like you, and helps you move faster with confidence, whether you're a seasoned DPO or you're just getting started.
See how modern privacy gets done. Explore Arc at trustarc.com/serious-privacy. That's trustarc.com/serious-privacy.